Hola, chicos y chicas, and bienvenidos. Welcome back to another one of these videos dealing with el subjuntivo. So the last video you most likely watched had to do with cláusulas adverbiales, right? Subjunctive using adverbial clauses. This is a video dealing with adjectival clauses. So we know that an adjectival clause and an adverbial clause are going to have to do with what? Adjectives and adverbs. So we know right off the bat that adverbs are things that we use to, or words we use to describe verbs, right, or other adverbs. And so we use adverbs to answer questions like how, what, where, why, when, right? We use adjectives to modify nouns. So that's basically the breakdown. We're using the subjunctive with adverbial clauses to basically modify and say things like I am going to the party so long as my friend comes, right? So long as my friend comes is modifying me going to the party. So it's an adjective, or excuse me, an adverb in a lot of ways. But if we're talking adjectives, we're saying things like this. I am looking for a person, right, who might be able to come with me to the party, right? So that person, right, is the noun being modified by who might be able to come with me to the party, which is the subjunctive, and it's basically modifying the person, right? So let's see what this looks like. So an adjectival clause and an adverbial clause, adverbial versus adjetival, we have these ejemplos, right? Let's take a look at the first group, which are adverbial. Yo voy a la fiesta con tal de que vaya mi amigo Juan, right? Con tal de que, so long as, provided that, right? Then haz la cama cuando puedas, right? So these are both examples of how we use these clauses, right? Con tal de que sets up an adverbial clause because it's modifying yo voy a la fiesta, right? I'm going to the party. How? So long as my friend goes. And we have the subjunctive. It's two subjects. We have que. It's very, very straightforward. Then we have cuando, which is another conjunction here that we use to create an adjectival, or rather an adverbial description. So I say, haz la cama, make the bed, whenever you can, cuando puedas, right? The difference with adjectival clauses, and these are actually pretty simple, you'll notice. You're saying that you're looking for something, or you want something that is a certain way. And because this thing doesn't exist in reality necessarily, it uses the subjunctive. So let's look at this first one. You're looking for something, right? So here it's una novia, right? A girlfriend. So una novia is going to be modified, by this adjectival clause using the subjunctive, right? So whenever you see un or una, right, it's basically saying that there's some doubt, there's some uncertainty. Because if I say, I want the car that is red that I saw the other day, right, that's completely certain. But if I say, I want a car, that car doesn't exist necessarily. It only exists in theory, in my imagination. It's not tangible. It's not something that I have, right? So let's look at these examples. Quiero una novia que sea guapa, right? Necesito un apartamento que tenga espacio, right? These places don't necessarily exist. They're theoretical, and that's why they use the subjunctive, right? So keep that in mind. It's the difference between adverbiales y adjetivales. So let's look at some of these verbs that we would use, right? So if we're describing a thing, right, using the subjunctive with these adjectival clauses, most likely we're looking for something, or we know of something, or we find something, we need something, we want something, there is something. That's where these verbs come into play. Buscar, right, is to look for. It's important. Conocer, to be familiar with or to know. Encontrar, to find. Necesitar, to need. Querer, haber, most likely with I, right? There is, there are. These are all verbs that are commonly used, right? Because why? Let's say we're staying with the idea of, let's say, un apartamento, right? We go back here, we see necesito un apartamento que tenga espacio, right? Busco un apartamento. I'm looking for one. Conozco un apartamento. I'm familiar with one. Encuentro, right? I find one, or I'm trying to find one. Necesito un apartamento. I need one. Quiero un apartamento. I want one. Hay un apartamento. There is one. Okay? These are very commonly used. Okay? So now the idea is, or the question rather is, when do we use subjunctive and when do we not when it comes to these adjectival clauses? Okay? So it's important to use context. Context is incredibly, el contexto aquí es muy importante. Okay? Super importante. The thing that we're looking for, the thing that we need, the thing that we want, the thing that, let's say we want to be familiar with or that we hope exists, is it a thing or is it the thing? That's important, right? So, un, una, unos, unas, right? Un coche, una casa, unos coches, unas casas. These are indefinite articles that mean a or an, right? A house, a car, okay, an apartment, right? They're indefinite. Whereas el, la, los, and las are definite, okay? So el coche, la casa, los coches, las casas. So what we're going to see is in the majority of the cases, okay, if you see un, una, unos, or unas, it's going to be subjuntivo. And if you see el, la, los, or las, it's going to be indicativo. So what do I mean by that? Let's look at these examples. I'm looking for a store, okay? I see busco una tienda. I'm looking for a store, right? The setup there is providing us with the context of uncertainty, right? It's a store. It's not the store. I don't know this place. I'm just looking for something that might be like it, right? That's very subjunctive, talking about uncertainty. So busco una tienda que tenga pantalones cortos, right? Or necesito un compañero de habitación, a roommate, que sea organizado, right? Let's look at the difference now. Whereas before, these things were kind of up in the air and not really known, not really specific or tangible, concreto. It's more abstracto, right? What we have in the second two here are, it's certainty, right? So when I ask someone, ¿conoces la tienda? Do you know the store? It's not going to be tenga, it's tiene. So, ¿conoces la tienda que tiene pantalones cortos? Do you know the store that has shorts, right? As opposed to the first one that says, busco una tienda. I'm looking for a store that might have shorts, right? Then the last example here is, ¿cómo está el compañero de habitación que es muy organizado? See the difference? I need a roommate, right? That might be or could possibly be organized. And then the next part is, oh, it's a question. How is the roommate that is, es, not sea, muy organizado? And this is how we break it down, right? We see the una. It tells us that it's a store, not the store. And it tells us that there's some uncertainty there. So consider these differences. They're very important, okay? However, ojo, okay, careful with these. Sometimes un or una or unos or unas can still convey some type of certainty, right? So if I ask someone, ¿qué tipo de apartamento quieres? What type of apartment do you want? And I say, bueno, conozco uno. I know one. I know of one. Que tiene dos habitaciones y una piscina gigantesca, right? See the difference there? In the first option, or in the first example here, I'm saying, I'm looking for a store, right? I don't know this store. However, in this case, I'm saying I know an apartment, right? So uno in this case doesn't necessarily give you subjunctive, although it normally will. Because why? Because I know it, right? Conozco uno que tiene dos habitaciones, right? Next one. Hola, señor. ¿Hay un problema? Hi, let's say there's a policeman that's the set up here. Hi, sir, or hi, officer. Is there a problem? And the officer says, sí, buscamos a un criminal que se escapó de la cárcel anoche. Right? We see un here, but he's saying what? He's saying that we're looking for a criminal that escaped last night. And escapó is regular indicative. It's the preterite here. Why? Because they know of this criminal, right? Even though they're referring to him or her as a criminal. It's not theoretical. It's not up in the air. They know exactly who it is. Okay? So be careful with that. Lastly, these words are really important. Nadie, nada, ninguno. Okay? These are all three negative words, we'd call them. Okay? Nadie, you should know what that is. It means nobody, right? Nada means nothing, and ninguno means none or no, right? So like if I said ningún hombre, no man, ninguna chica, no girl, right? In the world. These are some examples. We use the subjunctive almost always with these, right? No conozco. I no conozco a nadie. I don't know anyone that might speak Chinese. Okay, so no conozco a nadie que sepa hablar chino, right? Nadie is the ultimate uncertainty, right? Because it's no one that I know, right? Then the next example. No hay nada que. There is nothing that se compare con el último día de clases, right? That might compare. These are all subjunctive uses here, right? Look at these subjunctive uses. No hay nada que se compare con el último día de clases, right? There's nothing that might compare. So again, we're using this basically like we use the subjunctive all the time. There is no one that. That's ultimate uncertainty. Se compare con el último día de clases. Then lastly, no existe un animal que corra tan rápido como una chita. Right? There exists no animal that might, right? Corra. Again, change in subject, or actually this one doesn't actually have a change in subject, but that uncertainty in using adjectival clauses is what gives us a subjunctive. So again, we started with adverbial versus adjetival. We went to these common verbs that we use, right? I'm looking for an apartment that is big, that might be big, right? Then careful with uno, una, unos, y unas, normally the subjunctive. El, la, los, las, normally indicativo. Then think about it. Are we talking about something that's real or not? If it's something that exists only in our imagination, subjunctive. If it's something that is tangible, it's concrete, something that we know, we've seen, it's indicative most likely. But be careful. If we can, at the same time, use un and uno, unas, una, with indicative, right? There's a difference between saying I'm looking for a roommate that is organized and saying I have a roommate that is organized. The first one is more up in the air. The second one is more concrete. And then we got briefly into nadie, nada, ninguna. Okay, so si hay preguntas, por favor, hablamos de esto la clase que viene. Muchas gracias. Adiós.